And we're live. Hi, it's Melinda from Hope When There Was None. I am joined by my fabulous special guest, Amanda, and she's going to share her journey, how she got to become this badass and helps other women reclaim their life. She slays dragons and all other kinds of neat stuff. So, Amanda, I'm going to let you take that away.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes, my name is Amanda Ferrat, and my business now is called Value Yourself Counseling. I am a certified emotional wellness counselor and advanced EFT practitioner, but that was not always the plan. I like to say that I am a proud grad school dropout, which people would be like, "What? You're proud you dropped out of grad school?" Yes, because life had a different path for me. And so I was in grad school working on getting a master's of social work, right? Learning how to solve the world's problems and help everyone else and take care of everyone else. And life decided to hand me numerous losses in a short period of time. And one of those was my father, and then both of his parents, and a pet that I'd had for a decade. And I literally started running out of fingers and toes to count all my losses on, yet kept going back to school and kept trying to just keep going. And I wasn't giving my emotional wellness any space. I wasn't taking time to actually grieve. I was kind of pulling myself up by the bootstraps, as we do often here in our culture in America, and just kept going. And finally, that caught up to me. And even though I was eating healthy and I was working out and I was doing all those things for my physical well-being, if you don't take care of your emotional well-being, it takes a physical toll. And it all caught up to me in January of 2018, and life kind of imploded. I had to take a break from grad school, but in taking that break, I realized I needed to do more than take a break. I needed to be done, because in January of 2018, it was the start of almost a 2-year healing journey where things had to get much worse before they got better. In fact, my mental health took it became such an issue. I became mildly agoraphobic. I was barely leaving my own home. Um, I probably always had depression and anxiety, just never had gotten a good handle on it. I'd seen therapists before and I worked in mental health, right? So I had done the basics, but it was time to get a new therapist and get back into therapy. And I also qualified because my body started to fail along with my mental health. I now qualified for a service animal. So I got myself for my 40th birthday a dog, and I was going to train him as a service dog because I was like, it's going to force me to get back out in public. But that was a double-edged sword, because yes, it forces you to get back out in public, but it also draws a lot of attention because you've got this cute puppy now.
Oh,
And people are horrible with service animals. They don't always know the rules. And
right.
um but I was at least, trying to reintegrate back into the world and just doing a lot of things to take care of myself. I had to really get back in touch with what self-care meant for myself, because I actually, previous to grad school, had a boss who'd made the word self-care traumatic for me. She would micromanage our self-care because we
What?
worked in mental health, and she figured, oh, if I, help all my employees do self-care. Yeah. When your boss decides to micromanage your self-care, it's no longer self-care.
Right.
So
Wow.
let's just say I wasn't very good at it, because I wasn't doing whole person self-care. I wasn't attending to that emotional piece. And so I decided to completely take a break from grad school to just be done. Um, and so just took that journey. So summer of 2019, I had a friend die by suicide.
Oh,
And he is someone I had gone through high school and college with him, but we'd actually gotten closer as adults because he married my best friend's sister, who is also a sorority sister. So my best friend and I were sorority sisters. Her older sister was also in the sorority with us. He was in a fraternity, so we'd gotten closer through the Greek system, but then he had married my friend's sister. And so I went into action mode from Oregon. They were in Montana, which is home, or where I'm from. And I was like, okay, I love crystals, right? I put together a
yeah.
care package of crystals and everything else and all these things for them. And as soon as I could get home, I got myself home and went into action supporting this family however I could. They had been a second family of mine for 2 decades plus. And I came home from those several weeks back to Oregon, and I was like, okay, I'm not depleted like I used to be. Like, this felt good. There was balance. Like, I still held room for my needs in all of this as well. maybe it's time to come back into the world. Maybe it's time to see what this could be. And so I started looking up networking events and I met with a friend of mine who was a business coach, and we talked about ways that I could kind of use my experience and skills. And so that's when my first iteration of my business, which was Value Yourself Coaching, was born. And I was going to be a self-care and grief coach. And then the pandemic hit.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my goodness, am I going to go back to am I going to swing back? Am I going to go back to being agoraphobic? Am I going to is this isolation going to trigger my mental health again? How am I going to stay healthy? And thank goodness for online spaces and Zoom and all the things, because all these coaches that I had started to meet through going to these networking events before COVID set in, pivoted and did all these wonderful things online. And I was like, I can learn how to be an entrepreneur, because I'm not an entrepreneur by trade. That was never my thing. I'd watched my dad kind of do it, but I was like, great, I get to go learn. I love learning. I'm a life learner. And so I signed up for all the things, all the coaches, right? Was learning all these things. But in that, one of the coaches I was following, she brought on Jackie McDonald, who does EFT tapping, which is emotional freedom techniques. And I had come from a session with my astrologer, and I logged off and I logged into Facebook, and Jackie was on and was going live on this other coach's page. And I jumped in and she was tapping and we were following along, and tears just started to flow.
Oh.
And I felt this weight shift off my shoulders, it was a whole body shift. And I said, what is this magic? I need this for my healing. This is my next level of healing for myself. And this is what I want to do in the world. Because in 15 minutes, there was this transformation that had not happened in 2 years, in over 2 years. And I had tried all the things, right? EMDRs, all the other things. I had tried it all, hypnosis, all of it. And I knew in those 2 minutes that EFT was the magic I needed for myself and that I wanted to bring into the world. And so, sure enough, she was about to launch for her next cohort of training. I said, here's my credit card, sign me up. Yes, please. I want to become certified. And then she had her advanced level, which was fall. I said, yes, I want to honor that I was meant to be a therapist in one way or another. It's not, the traditional path that I was going to take. But if I can learn as much about EFT and work as deeply as possible with my clients, yes, please. And so now that's what I do. I also went back and I was like, I paid a lot of money for the grad school I did do, but of course I left in trauma, and our beautiful brains, when something happens in trauma, it buries everything, the good and the bad, right?
Right.
So all that lovely schooling I had paid for was now buried in trauma brain. And I was like, that's a really expensive amount of, let's fix that. So I actually found a wellness counseling certification through Cornell. And it sounded perfect. It's going to bring everything I need from grad school back up, because they were going to touch on, different behavioral therapies and motivational interviewing and all these things. And I'm like, yes, I would like to bring that back to the forefront of my knowledge and skills. And it worked. It was wonderful. And so that wrapped up. We're in 2022 now. It's like, how far have we gotten now? So wrapped all that training up in the beginning of 2021. So just about a year now. And that's when I relaunched my business as Value Yourself Counseling. And I've been spending the last year kind of working with women on, I like to say that I help them make peace with their past, fall in love with their present, and get excited about their future. And I do that through my combination of emotional wellness counseling and EFT tapping, so that they can just rework those limiting beliefs, rework those thought patterns, go in and, rework the emotions around past traumas and memories that are holding them back, so that they can, like you said, step into their badass self. Because I've done the work to be my ultimate badass, and I want other women to be able to embrace that as well.
I love that. I do. I love that. And what you said about the trauma brain, and that just triggered something in me. Now, I love Jackie McDonald. She's amazing. She is.
Yes.
I sat in on one of her trainings. She is just amazing. The free ones. She rocks. But, I haven't really sat down to get deep. So we might have to get together and tap into this, because I've been looking at different healing modalities. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And that's what healing is. You have to find what's for you. What
Right.
works for you might not work for somebody. And so
Right.
I really think you hit the nail on the head with finding something that works for you and you had that aha moment. I love that. I do. But that trauma brain, I had been, went to a Master Gardener program, did a couple other things. And, I look back on that, it's like, I don't remember anything, but I never thought about the trauma brain. I never thought about, I mean, I know about trauma brain, but I never thought about that. You said it, the brain
Yeah.
just kind of buries everything. Hello, light bulb. That can
Yeah.
explain so much. Where it's like, I know I went through this training. I don't remember. If you look at my garden, my yard now, you can't even tell I did this professionally. It's kind of pitiful, but that wow,
Yeah.
thank you, light bulb moment. That
Well,
is.
and that's where the magic of EFT happens. We have these primal parts of our brain that are in place to keep us alive, right?
Right.
And we've evolved. We've got our wonderful frontal lobes and all the other pieces that do all this magic. But if we can very easily get stuck in primal, some people like to call it lizard brain, right?
Yes.
Because it is what helped us survive for centuries, eons. But what tapping does is it combines both Eastern and Western practices. And so the Eastern part of the practice is that when you start tapping on the various acupressure meridians on the body, so there's the karate chop point, there's the top of the head, eyebrow point, side of the eye, under nose, under the chin, collarbone, under the arm, chest, and then wrist point are the points that I use in my tapping. And what those do, they correspond to different acupressure meridians, but they calm three different systems. They calm the limbic system, which is in charge of our emotions.
Mm.
They calms the amygdala in our brain, which is in charge of fight, flight, or freeze, fawn or freeze. There we go. And then it also it calms the sympathetic nervous system, which is pumping cortisol and all those stress hormones to our body when we are activated. And so by starting just even the tapping alone, right? We don't even have to be talking, but just starting the tapping alone, it's going to tell those three systems to calm down. And sometimes with tapping, you'll see people start yawning. And it's because it's going to get you to take those deeper breaths. It's going to get you to balance that oxygen. It's going to get you to kind of check back into your body. And then the Western philosophy part that comes in is when you're tapping with a practitioner, or even tapping by yourself, you're saying things out loud. And so you're then tapping into the subconscious, who now you can access because all those other systems that were shielding all of that before have calmed down. And then the subconscious it'll share memories that you need to re-examine, or those moments of trauma, or it'll say, this is this limiting belief, and it comes from that one time that somebody told me I wasn't enough, or whatever it is. And it'll also show, well, this is really what you're feeling. You thought it was disappointment, but really you're frustrated because this thing keeps happening and you don't know how to change it. And then we can start to work through that. And so how that happens is we first we rate how intense the emotions or whatever's coming up is. We rate where it's at in the body. And then we start reflecting that back through the language we use while we're tapping. And that allows the subconscious to say, yes, this works, or no, that's not quite what it is. It's really this, or share whatever it needs to share. And I kind of like to say, like those aha moments, like you had, that's what I help people have, is those aha moments. I make people cry because they'll have that moment of like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I've been holding on to this since I was 12 years old when this one incident happened, and it was reinforced by all these other incidences. And now at whatever age, that's why I believe what I believe about myself. And so we can then go back and start to rework the emotions and the memories around those things. And for those of you that love the science behind stuff, there is a ton of science behind EFT. Because I know there's a lot of people, I've been on some podcasts and had some conversations with folks, and they're like, I don't know, seems a little woo to me, seems a little, I don't know if I believe it. And no, there's science. In fact, Dr. Peta Stapleton is an amazing researcher. She wrote a book called The Science Behind Tapping that explains it all. And she's got a great Instagram account as well. But she talks about how we kind of tap on a global issue, and it's the top of the table. So let's say the top of the table is anxiety. So we're going to start tapping on anxiety. Well, then we're going to discover what all the legs of the table are, because once the subconscious is accessible, and ready to show us. It's going to be, well, the first time you got made fun of by your peers in kindergarten because you brought your weird stuffed animal to school and they laughed at you for days. That means so it's going to show you all these legs of the table that helped build that anxiety as a pattern for you. And so what we then can do is we can go back in and go to those memories, rework the emotions around those memories, put them away in a new package that feels a lot safer, that feels a lot more comfortable. And then we kind of knock that leg off the table. And pretty soon a table can't stand if it doesn't have enough legs under it. And so then you've gotten that anxiety and moved through it. And you now get to kind of exist in a different emotional state. So it doesn't mean that anxiety is never going to come up again, but you're going to be resourced in a new way to handle it when it does.
Ooh. Oh, I love that. I love that. And we do have Joe. Hi, Miss Joe. She is watching. She said, I'm going through that right now where she suppressed stuff, and recently it had been jogged from her consciousness. And I talked with her last night. It was a pretty powerful memory for her. And it's amazing how these things come up. But yeah, thank you for mentioning the science, because there are people, yeah, that it's a little woo. And I do talk about woo stuff on here. So, some of that stuff's not for everybody, but I do like that there is a science behind it. I actually I didn't ran or run. I went to Amazon and I put a link down there from Amazon for that book that you mentioned as well. So thank you for that. That's amazing. And of course, look for her on Instagram too. And speaking of links, before I go any further, which I forgot to mention, I do have Amanda's links. They're down here in the banner, but you can also find them in the comment section. So you don't have to scribble them down real quick. I do have those in the comments. You can go ahead and do this. And if you're listening on the podcast, I will have that in the description. You can go ahead and contact her that way as well. Wow. And honestly, truth bomb, I don't like therapy. I don't like counseling. And I know just for what you're talking about, because my inner guts right now, all of me right now is tense. I know if I start, and I've looked into many healing modalities, I get to the point where I just test them out. And then I'm immediately like, okay, I'm done. I tried it. It didn't work. So honestly, and I know it's from that protection for myself, not wanting to dive in, because I could feel myself being choked up, not wanting to dig into that past childhood, into those past experiences that I have. And I know they're there. They're buried there. But I've been out since 2009 from my abuser. But my mom left my childhood abuser, my stepdad, back when I was 13. So it was at 1983. So I've been out of that type of relationship. I jumped into a teen dating violence, and I did marry him about 4 years after that, teen dating violence, and then married. So there's a lot of crap there, a lot of baggage I know I haven't dealt with. I've dealt with this. I know I need to deal with it. I do eventually. I don't think I'm ready, because like I said, I can feel my body responding as you're mentioning things.
So you're not the only one that's not ready. And what I will say to that is there have been people that have tried different therapy modalities or EFT and said, oh, I felt worse after, or I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. My response to that is, then you didn't have a good fit of practitioner. And one of the very first things I do is I will make sure that I am the right fit for someone. And if I'm not, I went through a cohort of training with a ton of other lovely young women. And if I'm not the right fit for you, I will find you one of them that hopefully is, because I've been in that seat. My parents separated for a while when I was a young child, and I watched my dad kind of not be the nicest guy for a while. And so I'm a very emotional being, and my family didn't know what to do with how I was responding. So they put us in counseling, and that counselor was not a good fit. Oh. And then they moved us to a bigger city, and our school had a counselor, and I did not like this gentleman who was my 5th and 6th grade school counselor. Not a good fit. Right. So I have those memories as early as 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of having a horrible counselor. Then in junior high, the counselor at junior high, this was the most wonderful woman ever. She changed the game for me. She's probably part of why I do what I do, because I finally got shown what it was like to have someone who was safe. And so that is a very big key to my practice, and my core values is making sure that my practice is safe, one of my mottos is do no harm and acknowledge and do the work of repair when I have, because we're human. Life is messy. Inevitably, we're going to mess up. But I also work really hard to create a safe container and address any of those fears and concerns. And Jackie does a lovely job of teaching us when we train with her how to put things away if something comes up that somebody's not ready for, to make sure that we aren't ever re-triggering or re-traumatizing someone.
Right.
Because this is really sacred, deep work. I am digging elbow deep in your subconscious, and I do not take that lightly, and I do not take it for granted. And so it is something that I try to make sure that, and that's why we do it. The world isn't ready for in-person yet. And I love that I can serve people all around the globe, but I make sure I can see you on screen because I watch for changes in facial affect. I watch for those tears to start to, I watch for any of that tensing up, and I check in because part of my job as an EFT practitioner is to be a mirror, but I'm going to be that safe mirror. I'm not going to ever, make people push. I might, if I see some resistance, I might challenge that resistance, but with the most compassion and grace and care and kindness possible, because that is so important to me, because I've been in the client chair with really harmful therapists. And I've had it happen as an adult. Even I've had therapists because I was in grad school and they're like, oh, you're going to be one of us, that they crossed boundaries. Right. And it's just like, nope. So I'm very clear in my boundaries with my clients. And if something doesn't work for them, I encourage them and empower them to speak up. And I check in because it's so important to me that this work is held safe and sacred, and that my clients are held safe and sacred.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Thank you.
And I feel myself relax just as you're talking. So, I mean, really and truly, because, as you were talking, I could feel it in my neck. So it's just like, oh. Joe says she'd like to know more about the campsite page, please.
So that's just where you can find all my different things. And so if I've got a new link, that's where it goes. So it has the link to my Facebook group, to all the different things. So that's what campsite is. It's kind of like Linktree or those other sites where it's a one-stop shop for all the different things I have going on.
She also says that it's very true to find the right fit for a counselor. They need to be able to get you, air quotes, and need you to feel comfortable with them. They have them speak your language.
Yes. And that's the beauty of EFT, is I am reflecting your language back to you. I might, I get intuitive downloads, or I might have something that's like kind of, ooh, I want to say this. But I always kind of present it as, try this out, try this on. Never, I'm saying it, so it has to be true, because I'm not the authority of the other person. We're our own authorities. We know ourselves best. And I absolutely hate when somebody else tries to tell me that they think they know me better, because no, thank you, sir. You do not know me better. And so I make sure that, again, my clients are the authority, and that they get to, I do like that. Tell me more. Yeah, that does land with me. Let's use those words. And in tapping, I tell them, my ego is not involved. My ego was checked at the office door before the session. So if I use language that doesn't land for you, change it, or stop me and tell me. I'm not going to be upset. You paid for this. This is your time. So it's all about the client's language. It's all about what lands for them and what's comfortable for them.
Oh, Miss Joe. Let's see what Miss Joe says. Joe, tell me what to do and hold my beer as you watch me do the exact opposite. I love you, Joe.
And I know how to handle those people too. Like, I'm trained. Those ones that are like, I'm a rebel, because I'm a little bit of a rebel. So I get it, Joe. I understand.
That's Miss Joe. Yes. So we do have these links down here. So tell me about this group.
Yes. So I just, I want to create a world of authenticity and alignment where people get to show up safely, 100% themselves, 100% of the time. So I created Badass Women Breaking Barriers, and it's a group. I've shared some tapping in there, and I just want women to celebrate each other and to lean on each other when they need support, to have a space where they can go and say, hey, I've got this going on. Has anybody else gone through this before? or, whatever else is kind of coming up, or, hey, I need a referral for this. And I, would like to kind of get other women's opinions. So it's just a place where we can share that experience of what it's like, because we as women do have to navigate the world very differently. We do face different barriers. And so I just want a space, because I was in communities where I wasn't, certain parts of me kind of weren't allowed. And it wasn't, explicitly stated, but it was kind of that social rule that you kind of, you kind of pick up on certain parts of you aren't allowed. And I've been told I'm too much, or, like I've been told all sorts of things. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to go create a space then. And I'm going to create a space that is hopefully braver and safer and as inclusive as possible for women and those that identify as women to show up as you are, the messy parts, the ugly parts, all the parts, right? And to be held and to be seen and heard and witnessed without judgment, because this world is so good at misogyny, where women are even doing it to other women in spaces that are supposed to be empowered. And I just got tired of seeing that and witnessing that. And so I created this space where hopefully, none of that would show up. And if it did, I would, correct it the best I could and educate, right? And
give it the boot.
Give people the boot if needed. I have no problem setting those tough boundaries. But also just a space for me to kind of model and mirror some of those things. Again, I've been through the journey, and if I can ease the pain for anybody a few steps behind me, then that's the work I'm supposed to do in this world. Amen. And so I kind of created a space where I could share some of that. And yeah.
I love that. And I actually have 2 or 3 or 4 groups myself. Kind of created them because I wasn't finding, and I felt the same way. It's like, I don't feel like my voice is being heard in XYZ. So yeah, and it's nice to have that freedom to be able to do that. I'll have to check it out. Of course, I collect groups. I probably have about 400 groups.
I went and cleaned mine out at the start of the new year. That was one of I'm like, I am not going into 2022 with stuff that's not working for me anymore. And I started to clean out groups, and I was like, when did I join all of these? Like, what in the heck? And there was all different kinds of things, right? Everything from different craft stuff to women's groups to entrepreneur groups to different communities, or, somebody had run a training and they had a group that went with it. And the training had been, a year and a half ago, and the group hasn't been active in forever. It's like, all right, is there anything of value in this group anymore? Nope. I've gotten all the things out of it I need. I can let it go.
I have to do that. Thank you. That's a very good.
Well, it's so funny because as soon as I did that, Facebook started to show me all these things that had been that there wasn't room for, basically. And I was like, oh, I literally energetically, like, I cleaned house in Facebook, and now Facebook is like showing me this whole new world that is way more aligned. I'm like, this feels so much better. And I report all the diet ads as offensive, by the way, on Facebook. So I highly recommend, because I'm not about that diet culture, but that's just...
Yeah, usually if they're in skimpy little bathing suits or something, or the underwear ads. Yeah, that's me. It's inappropriate. I'm sorry. I find it offensive that this woman, it's all hanging out. Yeah, I do that too. You're my soul sister.
Like, I don't want to hear about Noom anymore. If that works for other people, that's great. But I'm so tired of hearing about it.
Yes. Well, thank you. And I hope this shed light for somebody that's watching out there on what EFT is and what your services are. And I know I could be confident in saying, hey, Amanda, I need you. I need the hand there. Yes. I'm definitely going to check out your group. But wow, thank you. Thank you for shedding light and sharing also some vulnerable parts of you and your story. Thank you. Miss Jo, she says, amen. And rebel without a cause.
Oh, I'm a rebel with a cause. I've got my causes, my hills that I will fight and die on. Oh.
Well, thank you, Amanda. It's been wonderful and a pleasure to have you. I appreciate it. And again, Everyone can see the podcast. It'll be downloaded as soon as I'm done here. I'll be uploading that to Anchor. So please like and share it. Give me some 5 stars. Give Amanda some love. Go visit her links here. If you're a lady looking for a supportive group, she has a wonderful group you can join. Again, all that will be in the description of this
Yes.
and on the podcast as well. So this is Melinda. I'm going to sign off. And again, thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Thank
You have a
you.
great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Joe.